The council chamber was massive. It stretched upward for hundreds of meters, with seats arranged in circular tiers that seemed to touch the artificial sky above. Representatives from 3,000 different species sat in those seats, their bodies ranging from small floating orbs to massive creatures that required special platforms. At the center of it all stood a single human woman wearing a simple blue suit. Ambassador Ji-won Choi had been standing there for 3 hours. Her legs ached. Her throat was dry. But she kept speaking because this might be humanity's last chance. "We have followed every rule," Ji-won said, her voice amplified across the enormous chamber. "We paid every tax. We accepted every restriction. When you told us we could only settle 3 worlds, we agreed. When you limited our trade routes, we adapted. When you banned our exploration ships from half the galaxy, we complied. But this new resolution goes too far." A being that looked like a collection of floating crystals made a sound like breaking glass. It was laughing. Others joined in. The chamber filled with thousands of different sounds, but they all meant the same thing. Mockery. Councillor Thex leaned forward from his high seat. The Bravaxian was 3 meters tall with skin like blue metal, and eyes that glowed with inner fire. "Humanity has been a problem since you joined us 83 years ago. You breed too fast. You expand too quickly. You ask too many questions. Resolution 8847 will fix these problems." Ji-won's hands clenched into fists at her sides. "You want us to give up 60% of our military fleet. You want us to stop all expansion beyond our 3 colonies. You want us to hand over our technology so you can decide who else gets to use it. And you want us to pay for the privilege of our own oppression." "Yes," Thex said simply. "You have 30 days to comply, or we will help you comply." The vote was called. Ji-won watched the massive display boards light up with the results. 2,800 species voted yes, 150 abstained, 43 voted no, 7 voted in favor of humanity, including a small delegation led by a Krillian named Velthara, who caught Ji-won's eye and shook her head sadly. The hammer fell. Resolution 8847 was now galactic law. Ji-won walked out of the chamber with her head high. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. Not here, not now. Captain Minho Park was waiting for her outside, along with Dr. Yuna Lee. Minho was a career military officer who had spent 20 years in space. He had the weathered look of someone who had seen too much. Yuna was younger, with bright eyes that always seemed to be analyzing everything around her. "How bad?" Minho asked quietly. "As bad as we expected," Ji-won replied. "They want everything. Our ships, our freedom, our future." "Then we need to show them what we found," Yuna said. They walked quickly through the corridors of the station, past hundreds of alien species going about their business. No one paid attention to 3 humans. They never did. Humanity was just another small species in a galaxy full of bigger, older, more powerful civilizations. That was what everyone thought anyway. They reached the Perseverance, the human diplomatic vessel docked at the station. Once aboard, they went straight to the secure briefing room. Admiral Hyun Kim was already there, his image transmitted from Earth on a secured channel. The Admiral was 60 years old and had the kind of face that looked carved from stone. "Tell me you have something," Hyun said without preamble. Minho brought up a holographic display. 2 weeks ago, a Council trade station was attacked near the Outer Rim. 47 beings killed. The Council blamed human colonists and used it as justification for Resolution 8847. "I remember," Hyun said. "We denied involvement. They ignored us." "Because they knew we were innocent," Yuna said. She manipulated the display, bringing up streams of data. "I hacked into the station's backup systems. The attack came from Council military vessels using fake transponders. They killed their own people to frame us." The room went silent. "You're certain?" Hyun asked. "Completely. I have weapon signatures, flight paths, and communications. 3 Council species worked together to stage the attack." Ji-won sat down heavily. "They manufactured a reason to destroy us." "We need to go public with this," Minho said. "Show every species in the galaxy what the Council really is." "We will," Hyun replied. "But we need to be ready for what comes next. They won't just apologize and back down. The Council has been in power for thousands of years. They've crushed species for less than what we're about to do." "So we're really doing this?" Ji-won asked. "We're defying them?" Hyun's expression didn't change. "Ambassador, I want you to present this evidence to the Council. Give them one chance to withdraw the resolution and admit their crimes." but start preparing evacuation plans for all human colonies. Minho, I need the Perseverance ready to run at a moment's notice. Yuna, keep digging. Find everything you can about Council military movements. And you? Ji-won asked. I'm going to start moving pieces on the board quietly, very quietly. Because if they say no, we're going to war with an enemy that outnumbers us 1,000 to 1. The meeting ended. Ji-won went back to her quarters and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, a small blue world where 8 billion humans lived their lives, completely unaware that their entire species was about to make a choice that could end in extinction. She thought about her daughter back home, about all the children who would grow up in the shadow of this decision. But she also thought about Resolution 8847, about the Council's casual cruelty, about the way Thex had smiled when he threatened her species. The next day, Ji-won requested an emergency session of the Council. It was granted, though she could tell they expected her to beg. She stood in the same spot as before. This time she had a holographic display with her. Counselors, she began, I come before you with evidence of a grave crime. She showed them everything. The fake attack, the forged evidence, the communications between Council species planning humanity's downfall. She watched their faces. Most showed no emotion. Some looked uncomfortable. A few looked angry that she had dared to investigate them. When she finished, Thex stood up. These accusations are absurd, he said. The resolution stands. You have 28 days remaining to comply. So you admit it, Ji-won said. You admit you framed us. I admit nothing. And I remind you that making false accusations against the Council is itself a crime. Ji-won smiled then. It was not a happy smile. In that case, I have a message from Earth. From our president, our military, and every human being alive. She paused, letting the silence build. We decline. The chamber erupted in chaos, shouting in 1,000 languages, threats, demands. Thex's voice rose above them all. You have made your choice, Ambassador. The Council will respond accordingly. Ji-won turned and walked out. Behind her, the most powerful governing body in the galaxy scrambled to crush one small species that had finally said no. On Earth, Admiral Hyun gave his first order. Begin Project Reckoning. And may whatever gods are listening forgive us for what comes next. The blockade arrived 6 days later. 200 Council warships materialized at the edge of Earth's solar system, their weapons pointed at humanity's homeworld. 50 more appeared around each of the 3 human colonies. New Horizon, New Sol, Haven's Gate. Every human world in the galaxy was now under siege. Commander Doyen Shin watched the enemy fleet from the bridge of the Defiance. His ship was humanity's newest, most advanced warship. It was also completely unknown to the Council. They thought humans only had old cargo haulers converted for military use. They had no idea what the Defiance could do. Captain, his weapons officer said, they're hailing us. Put them through. A Bravaxian commander appeared on screen. Human vessel, you will power down your weapons and submit to boarding. By order of the Council, all human military ships are to be impounded immediately. Doyen smiled. No. Then you will be destroyed. You can try. The Bravaxian's eyes widened in surprise at the casual Defiance. Then his ship opened fire. The Defiance moved, not like a cargo hauler, not like anything the Council had ever seen before. It twisted through space using gravity drives that shouldn't exist, avoiding the energy beams by centimeters. Then it fired back. Human railguns launched solid projectiles at a fraction of light speed. The Council ships had energy shields designed to deflect lasers and plasma. The shields did nothing against solid metal moving at relativistic speeds. 3 Council ships exploded in the first volley. Target the command ship, Doyen ordered calmly. Show them we're not playing. The Defiance accelerated straight at the Bravaxian flagship. Council ships moved to intercept, firing everything they had. The human ship's shields held. Then it launched missiles. Not the simple rockets the Council expected. These were AI-controlled hunter-killers that dodged, weaved, and thought for themselves. 5 more Council ships died before the Defiance jumped to faster-than-light speed and vanished. The Battle of Sol's Edge lasted 17 minutes. Humanity lost 0 ships. The Council lost 8 with 14 more damaged. It was the first time in 1,000 years that anyone had drawn Council blood. On Earth, Admiral Hyun watched the battle reports with satisfaction. Send the data to every human ship in the fleet. Let them see that the enemy can bleed. Meanwhile, near New Horizon Colony, the situation was more desperate. The colony had 40,000 civilians and only 2 defense platforms. The Council fleet surrounding them numbered 60 ships. Captain Minho Park brought the Perseverance out of jump space behind the Council lines. His ship wasn't a warship, it was a diplomatic vessel, but it carried cargo holds full of supplies that New Horizon desperately needed. "This is insane," his first officer said. "We can't fight our way through 60 ships." "We're not going to fight," Minho replied. "We're going to sneak." The Perseverance was running completely dark. No engines, no power signatures, just momentum carrying it toward the planet. Human stealth technology was another secret the Council didn't know about. While Council sensors were designed to track ships putting out energy, they couldn't see something that was essentially a dead rock drifting through space. They made it past 50 ships before someone finally noticed them. "Contact! Human vessel approaching the planet." 20 Council ships turned to intercept. Minho's hand hovered over the engine controls. "Not yet," he whispered. "Not yet." The Council ships opened fire. Energy beams lanced through space toward the Perseverance. "Now!" The engines blazed to life. The ship dove toward the planet at maximum acceleration. Behind them, the energy beams missed by hundreds of kilometers. The Council ships tried to pursue, but the Perseverance was already entering the atmosphere. They landed hard at the colony's main spaceport. Colonists rushed to unload the supplies while Council ships gathered in orbit above. "We have maybe 10 minutes before they start bombing us," Minho said. A young woman ran up to him. She wore a colony administrator's uniform. "Captain Park? I'm Sora Han. I run security here. We need to evacuate everyone." "Where?" "There's nowhere to go." Sora smiled grimly. "There is if you know where to look. This planet has cave systems that go down for kilometers. We've been preparing for this since the resolution passed." Around them, colonists were already moving with practiced efficiency, families carrying children, old people helping each other. Everyone heading toward the tunnel entrances that led underground. They had supplies hidden there. Power generators, food, medical equipment. Everything they needed to survive. "How long can you last down there?" Minho asked. "Months if we have to. Years if we're careful." Above them, the Council fleet began its attack. But instead of finding helpless civilians, they found empty buildings. The humans had vanished underground like they had never been there at all. Counselor Thex watched the reports from the safety of his flagship. He was furious. How can primitives be this difficult? "Send more ships. I want every human colony crushed within the week." His military advisor, a cautious being named Ixara, spoke up. "Perhaps we should reconsider. The humans are more advanced than we thought." "Reconsider?" Thex's voice was ice. "We are the Council. We have ruled this galaxy for millennia. We do not reconsider because one species shows its teeth." He turned to his fleet commander. "I want an example made. Choose one colony and bombard it from orbit. Kill everyone. Let the humans see what happens to those who defy us." The order went out. 60 ships gathered above New Horizon. Their weapons powered up, ready to burn the surface clean of all life. But the colonists were deep underground by then, protected by kilometers of rock. And they weren't alone. Commander Unji Kang commanded a squadron of 5 stealth ships. They had been waiting in the outer system, watching. When the Council fleet moved into bombardment formation, she gave the order. "All ships engage." The stealth squadron materialized behind the Council fleet like ghosts becoming solid. Their weapons were already firing before the enemy knew they were there. Missiles streaked through space. Railgun rounds punched through shields and hulls. The Council fleet scattered in confusion, but it was too late to stop the bombardment. One Council ship, more eager than smart, fired its main weapon at the planet's surface. The beam hit the colony's central district. Buildings vaporized in an instant. 14,000 humans died before they could even scream. The world watched it happen. Not just humans, everyone. A species called the Trell had been broadcasting the Council's actions on underground networks, showing other species what was really happening. Now 3 trillion beings across the galaxy saw the Council murder civilians without mercy. On Earth, Admiral Hyun stood in the command center surrounded by screens showing data from across human space. He had just watched 14,000 of his people die. His face showed nothing, but his hands were shaking. An officer approached. "Sir, the fleet is assembled. All ships are in position. We're ready." Hyun looked at the screens. "At the Council fleet surrounding human worlds, at the ships guarding their supply lines, at their military stations and bases scattered across dozens of systems. He thought about every human who had died, every colonist who had trusted Earth to protect them. He picked up the communications device that would transmit his next order to every human military vessel in existence. "This is Admiral Hyun Kim. As of this moment, we are at war. All restrictions are lifted. All experimental weapons are authorized for use. All secret protocols are now active. Show the Council what humans are capable of when we stop holding back. Show them what happens when they push us too far. No mercy, no restraint, for New Horizon, for humanity, for everyone who ever dared to say no to tyrants." He paused, then added one final sentence. "Make them regret the day they met us." Across human space, thousands of ships received the order. Soldiers who had been trained for this moment their entire lives finally got to act. Scientists activated weapons that had been built in secret for decades. Intelligence officers executed plans that had been waiting for years. Humanity had been preparing for this war since the day they joined the Council. They had just been very, very good at hiding it. The Council learned about human capabilities very quickly and painfully. Commander Yoonji Kang's stealth squadron struck first. They hit supply convoys moving between Council worlds, appearing from nowhere and vanishing just as fast. Within 3 days, they had destroyed 40 transport ships carrying food, ammunition, and fuel. Council fleets found themselves stranded in empty systems, unable to move because their supplies never arrived. But the stealth attacks were just the beginning. Dr. Jun-Ho Park had spent 15 years developing weapons the Council thought were impossible. His laboratory was hidden deep inside an asteroid in the outer reaches of human space. Now his creations were being deployed across the galaxy. The first was the gravity well generator. It was a device the size of a car that could create artificial gravity fields in empty space. When activated near a Council fleet, it trapped their ships like insects in amber. They couldn't jump to faster than light speed. They couldn't even move normally. They just floated there, helpless. Then human ships would arrive and destroy them at leisure. The Council lost 17 fleets to gravity wells in the first week. The second weapon was simpler but just as effective. Hunyo called them hunter swarms. Each one was a cloud of 10,000 tiny drones, each no bigger than a human fist. They weren't individually dangerous, but 10,000 of them working together could strip a warship down to its frame in minutes. The swarms were released near Council military stations. They cut through hulls, destroyed systems, and killed anything inside. The stations fell silent one by one, their distress calls cutting off mid-transmission. The third weapon was the most devastating. Fusion warheads mounted on missiles that could reach near light speed. When they hit, entire ships simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged, gone. Converted to energy and scattered atoms. The Council had never faced anything like it. They had been the strongest military force in the galaxy for so long that they had forgotten what real war looked like. They fought with rules, with honor, with traditions. Humans fought to win. Commander Doyen Shin's defiance became a legend in those early weeks. It appeared at battle after battle, always where it was least expected. It moved like nothing else in space, dancing between enemy ships and tearing them apart. Doyen's crew learned to fight like humans had always fought. Fast, brutal, efficient. At the Battle of Kepler Station, the Defiance engaged a Council battle group of 15 ships. The fight lasted 8 minutes. When it was over, 5 Council ships were destroyed, 6 were crippled, and 4 had surrendered. The Defiance had taken damage, but it jumped away before reinforcements could arrive. The ship limped to a hidden repair station where human engineers worked around the clock to fix it. Doyen stood on the bridge looking at damage reports. When his communications officer called out, "Captain, we're getting a transmission from one of the surrendered Council ships. Put it through." The alien on screen was a Krillian, one of the species that had voted against Resolution 8847. "Human Commander, my name is Velthera. I am a Council member, though I suspect not for much longer. I wish to defect." Doyen raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because I have seen what the Council truly is. I have access to their defense systems, their codes, their military plans, and I want to help you burn them down." This could be a trick. Velthera's expression was somber. "It could be, but I watched your species spend 83 years following rules that were designed to break you. I watched the council murder 14,000 of your people for daring to say no. I will not be part of that anymore. Take my information or don't, but know that I am done serving tyrants. Doyen made a decision that would change the war. Welcome aboard. I hope you mean what you say. Meanwhile, Captain Minho Park was leading a different kind of mission. While the military fought, he was rescuing prisoners from council detention facilities. The council had been capturing humans for decades, holding them on false charges, using them as test subjects. Minho's mission was to bring them home. His ship approached a prison station in the dead of night, if night meant anything in space. Using Velthara's codes, they disabled the alarms and cut through the outer hull. Minho led a team inside, moving through corridors filled with cells. They found 300 humans locked away. Some had been there for years. All of them thought they had been forgotten. Earth sent us, Minho told them. We're taking you home. But the cells also held prisoners from other species. Beings who had defied the council in smaller ways and paid the price. A Trell journalist who had written about council corruption. A Vothan scientist who had refused to develop weapons. A Quillian merchant who had traded with humans against regulations. Minho made another decision. We're taking everyone. No one gets left behind. They escaped with over 500 prisoners just before council reinforcements arrived. Those prisoners told their stories to the galaxy. About torture. About experiments. About the council's systematic brutality toward anyone who questioned them. More species began to have doubts. On a distant world called Taros III, a human named Taejin Ro led a different kind of resistance. He had been a peacekeeper before the war, working to maintain friendly relations between humans and other species. Now he led guerrilla fighters in hit-and-run attacks against council installations. Taejin's group was small, just 50 fighters, but they knew the terrain. They struck fast and disappeared into the wilderness. They sabotaged power plants. They destroyed communication arrays. They made it impossible for the council to maintain control of the planet. Other humans on other worlds began copying his tactics. Soon the council was fighting insurgencies on dozens of planets. Every soldier they sent to deal with guerrillas was a soldier who couldn't fight the main human fleet. Admiral Hyun coordinated all of it from Earth. He moved ships like pieces on a game board, always 3 moves ahead of the enemy. When the council committed ships to one system, he struck at another. When they fortified their supply lines, he attacked their military academies. When they tried to corner his fleet, he vanished and appeared somewhere else entirely. The council was fighting a war on 1,000 fronts, and they were losing on everyone. Dr. Yuna Lee worked from a different angle. She analyzed council military tactics, looking for weaknesses. She found them everywhere. The council relied on overwhelming force because it had always worked before. They didn't know how to adapt. They didn't know how to improvise. They followed doctrine written thousands of years ago and never questioned it. Humans, by contrast, had been at war with themselves for most of their history. They knew every dirty trick, every tactical innovation, every way to turn weakness into strength. They had learned to fight against enemies with superior technology and win through cunning and determination. Now they used all of that knowledge against the council. After 2 months of fighting, the situation was clear. The council had lost a quarter of their fleet. Their supply lines were in chaos. Their member species were questioning their leadership. They still outnumbered humans significantly, but for the first time in millennia they were afraid. Councillor Thex called an emergency meeting. His fellow council members gathered in the central chamber, many appearing via hologram because they were afraid to leave their home worlds. We underestimated them, one councillor said. Underestimated? Thex snarled. They were supposed to be primitives. How do they have weapons we've never seen? How are they everywhere at once? Ixara spoke up quietly. Perhaps because we assumed we knew everything. Perhaps because we believed our own propaganda. We told ourselves humans were inferior because it made us feel better about oppressing them. But we were wrong. Then what do? Thex stood up. We destroy their homeworld. We send our entire remaining fleet to Earth and we end this once and for all. If humanity has no home, they will have no reason to keep fighting. That's genocide, Ixara said. That's victory. The vote was called. It passed. The Council's first fleet, the most powerful armada ever assembled, began moving toward Earth. 500 ships. Tens of thousands of soldiers. Enough firepower to crack a planet. They expected to find Earth defended by maybe 100 ships. They expected a hard fight but an inevitable victory. They expected the war to end in fire and blood. What they found instead was a solar system that had been turned into the most elaborate death trap in galactic history, and 8 billion humans who were done running. The Council's first fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system, expecting an easy target. They found hell instead. The first wave of 500 ships jumped into normal space and immediately triggered proximity alarms. They were surrounded by thousands of mines, not simple explosives. These were AI-controlled hunter mines that accelerated to incredible speeds and detonated on contact. 50 Council ships exploded in the first 30 seconds. Commander Seojin Bae led Earth's fighter squadrons into the chaos. His squadron was called the Reapers, and they had earned that name over months of brutal combat. They flew small, fast ships that were nearly impossible to hit and carried enough firepower to hurt capital ships. "All wings, engage at will," Seojin ordered. "Show them what Earth's sky looks like when it's angry." The fighters dove into the Council formation like birds of prey. They were outnumbered 10-1, but they didn't care. This was their home. These were their families below. They would die before they let the enemy through. Seojin locked onto a Council cruiser and fired his main weapon. It was a lance beam, concentrated energy that could cut through armor like paper. The cruiser's shields flickered and died. His next shot carved a line across its hull, venting atmosphere into space. The ship began to list, systems failing. "That's for New Horizon," Seojin said quietly. Around him, his pilots were doing the same thing. They moved like they were dancing, weaving through enemy fire with practiced ease. Every human pilot knew they might die today, but they also knew they would take as many Council ships with them as possible. The Council fleet tried to push deeper into the solar system. They ran into the second layer of defense. Platforms hidden throughout the asteroid belt opened fire. These weren't regular weapons. They were mass drivers, launching asteroids at relativistic speeds. When a chunk of rock moving at a significant fraction of light speed hits a ship, it doesn't matter how good your shields are. The ship simply ceases to exist. Admiral Hyun watched from Earth's Surface Command Center. Screens surrounded him, showing data from across the solar system. Each blinking light represented a ship, a weapons platform, a battle that would determine humanity's survival. "Status report," he called out. "Enemy fleet is down to 430 ships. Our losses are minimal. Fighter wing has lost 12 craft. Defense platforms are holding." Hyun nodded. "Activate the gravity net." Hidden throughout the inner solar system were the largest gravity well generators ever built. When they activated simultaneously, they created a field that trapped the entire Council fleet. The enemy ships found themselves unable to jump away, unable to retreat. They were stuck in Earth's territory, forced to fight until someone won. Counselor Thex watched from his flagship, the Eternal Authority. He was beginning to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. But pride wouldn't let him admit it, not yet. "All ships continue the advance," he ordered. "Earth is just one planet. They cannot stand against us forever." His tactical officer, a cautious being who had been advising restraint for weeks, finally spoke up. "Sir, we should withdraw. This is a trap." "There is no withdrawal," Thex roared. "We are the Council. We do not run from primitives." The fleet pushed forward and encountered the third layer of defense. Hidden among the planets and moons were weapons that Dr. Hana Kwan had designed. She had studied Council technology for years, finding every weakness, every vulnerability. Now those weaknesses were being exploited ruthlessly. Her weapons sent out electromagnetic pulses that fried Council computer systems. Suddenly, half their fleet was flying blind, relying on manual controls and backup systems. The humans had anticipated this. Their ships were hardened against such attacks, operating normally while the enemy struggled. The battle raged for 3 weeks. The Council kept sending reinforcements. The humans kept destroying them. The solar system became a graveyard of ships, both human and alien. But for every human ship lost, 3 Council vessels died. Commander Seojin Bae had been fighting for 16 hours straight when he saw the Eternal Authority. The Council flagship was larger than anything else in the battle, bristling with weapons and protected by the best shields the Council could build. "Reapers on me," Seojin called out. "We're going to take down their command ship." "That's suicide," one of his pilots said. "Then we die taking their leader with us. Form up." 50 fighters accelerated toward the flagship. Council point defense systems opened fire. filling space with energy beams and missiles. 40 fighters made it through. 30, 20, 10, 5 fighters, including Seojun's, reached the flagship's hull. They fired everything they had at the same spot, focusing all their firepower on a single point in the shields. The shields flickered, held, flickered again, and broke. Seojun launched his last 4 missiles directly into the gap. They punched through the hull and detonated inside the ship. Secondary explosions rippled through the flagship. Its lights went dark. Its engines died. The Eternal Authority began tumbling through space, a dead hulk. Inside, Counselor Thex died along with 3,000 crew members. His last thought was disbelief that primitives had beaten him. With their flagship gone, the Council fleet broke. Some ships tried to fight on. Most tried to flee, only to find themselves trapped by the gravity net. The humans showed no mercy. They had learned that lesson at New Horizon. Every Council ship that had participated in that atrocity died in Earth's skies. While the battle raged, something else was happening across the galaxy. Ambassador Ji-Won Choi and Dr. Yuna Lee had been working on a different kind of weapon. Information. They had hacked into every Council system they could find. They had stolen documents, recordings, communications, 500 years of evidence showing the Council's crimes, genocides, suppressions, experiments. Every species the Council had crushed, every civilization they had destroyed, every lie they had told. And then they broadcast it all. Every screen in the galaxy showed the truth. 3 trillion beings learned what their government really was. The Council's legitimacy shattered like glass. On Viridian Prime, where the Council headquarters stood, member species began withdrawing their support. Some did it quietly. Others marched in the streets. A few sent their militaries to arrest their own Council representatives. Councillor Velthara, the Krillian who had defected to humanity, appeared on broadcasts across the galaxy. She testified to everything she had seen. She provided documents proving the Council had planned to exterminate humanity since their first contact. She showed communications where Council leaders laughed about crushing other species. The galaxy watched, and the galaxy was angry. By the time the Battle of Sol ended, the Council had lost more than its fleet. It had lost everything that gave it power, trust, authority, legitimacy. Member species were in open rebellion. Former allies became enemies. The whole rotten structure was collapsing. On Earth, President Min Ji-yang stood before cameras addressing the galaxy. She was a small woman with gray hair and a tired face, but her voice was steady. The Council ordered us to surrender, to give up our ships, our freedom, our future. We said no. They attacked us. We defended ourselves. Now they are broken and we stand victorious. But we are not monsters. We are not the Council. So I make this offer to every Council member who surrenders peacefully, who agrees to face trial for their crimes. We promise fair treatment under Galactic law. To those who continue fighting, we promise only destruction. Choose wisely. You have 24 hours. Most chose surrender. A few tried to run. Human ships caught them. Admiral Heon received reports that the last Council military base had fallen. The war was over. Humanity had won. He sat down for the first time in 3 weeks and felt all the exhaustion hit him at once. Someone handed him a cup of coffee. He looked up and saw it was Captain Minho Park. "We did it," Minho said. "At what cost?" Hyun replied. He called up casualty reports. 40,000 humans dead, 3 colonies damaged, millions of other species killed in the fighting. Was it worth it? Ask the people we freed. Ask the species that are finally out from under the Council's boot. Ask anyone who gets to wake up tomorrow without fearing a tyrant. Minho paused. "We didn't start this war, Admiral. We just finished it." Hyun nodded slowly. "Now comes the hard part. We have to build something better." 6 months after the war ended, trials began on Viridian Prime. The station where the Council had once ruled in arrogance was now converted into a courthouse. Representatives from 400 species came to watch justice finally be served. Ambassador Ji-Won Choi stood before the assembled beings. She had been chosen to lead the prosecution, not because she wanted revenge, but because she understood what was at stake. This wasn't just about punishing the guilty. It was about showing the galaxy that the age of tyrants was over. The first defendant was brought in. His name was Vex, a high-ranking council member who had personally ordered the destruction of New Horizon Colony. He had killed 14,000 humans without hesitation. Now he stood in chains before the galaxy he had once ruled. The evidence against you is overwhelming, Jiwan said. She brought up videos, communications, orders signed in his own hand. You murdered civilians. You ordered attacks on peaceful worlds. You conspired to commit genocide against the human species. How do you plead? Vex stared at her with hatred. I plead that I was doing my duty. The council existed to maintain order. Humanity was chaos. We were trying to save the galaxy. By killing children? Vex had no answer to that. The trial lasted 3 weeks. At the end, Vex was found guilty on 47 counts of crimes against sentient species. He was sentenced to life imprisonment on a secured facility, where he would spend the rest of his days thinking about what he had done. Hundreds more trials followed. Some council members admitted their crimes and asked for forgiveness. Others remained defiant until the end. All of them faced justice, but justice was only the first step. The real work was building something better. President Minji Yang stood before representatives from 847 species. They had gathered on Earth, in a new building constructed specifically for this purpose. No more meeting on Viridian Prime, where the council had lorded over everyone. This time everyone came to neutral ground. The council is dead, Minji said. Her voice echoed across the chamber. Good. It was a relic of an older, crueler time. But we cannot leave a vacuum. The galaxy needs structure. It needs laws. It needs a way for species to work together. So I propose something new. Not a council where some species rule over others, but an assembly where every species has an equal voice. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species loved the idea. Others were suspicious. A few openly hostile. They had spent centuries watching the strong dominate the weak. They couldn't imagine anything different. It was Councillor Velthera who stood up and silenced the room. I was part of the council, she said. I saw how it operated. It was built on fear and the belief that some species were better than others. But I watched humanity fight a war against impossible odds and win. Not because they were stronger, but because they refused to become monsters. They could have destroyed every council world. They could have enslaved us in revenge. Instead, they offered trials and justice. If they can show that kind of restraint, maybe the rest of us can learn to do the same. The Galactic Assembly was formed that day. Every species got one vote, regardless of size or power. Decisions required majority approval. Military action required 2/3 support. And there were protections built in to prevent any species from being oppressed again. Captain Minho Park became the first Ambassador General, responsible for peacekeeping operations. His job was to stop conflicts before they became wars. He traveled from world to world, mediating disputes, building trust. It was harder than fighting had been. On a planet called Kelvin 4, 2 species were on the brink of war over water rights. Minho spent 3 weeks there, listening to both sides, finding common ground. In the end, he helped them design a system where both species could share the water fairly. You could have taken sides, one of the leaders told him. You could have used force to make us comply. Why didn't you? Because we learned something during the war, Minho replied. Force can win battles, but it can't build peace. Peace requires everyone to feel heard, to feel valued. That's harder, but it lasts longer. Commander Doyen Shin oversaw the dismantling of Council military installations across dozens of worlds. Many of these bases had been used to oppress local populations. Now they were being torn down or converted into hospitals, schools, and research centers. On Taros III, where Taijin Ro had led the guerrilla resistance, Doyen helped transform a council fortress into a university. Beings from across the galaxy came there to learn, to share knowledge, to build connections. Strange, Taijin said, standing beside him. A year ago, we were blowing up these buildings. Now we're teaching children in them. That's progress, Doyen replied. Or destroys. Peace builds. I know which one I'd rather spend my life doing. Dr. Yuna Lee founded the Institute for Galactic Unity. Its mission was simple but vital. Study how tyrannies form, understand why species oppress each other, and develop ways to prevent it from happening again. She gathered scholars from 300 species, all working together to answer one question. How do we make sure this never happens again? They studied the Council's rise to power. They analyzed other historical empires. They looked at economic systems, political structures, social dynamics, and they published their findings freely, so every species could learn from the past. Knowledge is the best defense against tyranny, Yuna often said. The council relied on people not knowing the truth. We're making sure everyone knows everything. Admiral Hyun retired after the war. He had spent 40 years in military service, with the last year being the hardest. Now he wanted rest. He went to New Horizon, the colony that had been attacked, and helped with rebuilding efforts. The colony had been devastated by the orbital bombardment. But the survivors were determined to rebuild. They constructed a memorial for the 14,000 dead, a wall with every name carved into black stone. Above it, words that Hyun himself wrote. They died free. They died defiant. They died proving that no tyrant can break the human spirit. We remember them. We honor them. And we build a better galaxy in their memory. Hyun spent his days working with construction crews, helping to rebuild homes and schools. Someone recognized him one day. "You're Admiral Hyun, you won the war." He shook his head. "I just gave orders." The people who really won were the ones who followed them. The pilots who flew into enemy fire. The soldiers who held impossible positions. The civilians who refused to surrender. All I did was point them in the right direction. Commander Seojin Bai became an instructor at Earth's Fighter Academy. He trained new pilots, teaching them not just how to fly, but why they flew. Many of his students were from other species now. The Assembly had asked Earth to help train their militaries in case another threat emerged. "Fighting is easy," Seojin told his class. "Any species can learn to kill. But fighting for something, fighting to protect rather than dominate, that's what separates soldiers from murderers. Remember that every time you climb into a cockpit." Sora Han, who had organized the evacuation of New Horizon, became a director in Assembly Intelligence. Her job was to watch for signs of emerging tyrannies, to catch problems before they became crises. She had networks across the galaxy, people reporting on their governments, keeping everyone honest. "Trust is good," she often said, "but verification is better." The council fell because no one was watching them. "We're going to watch everyone, including ourselves." President Minji Yang served 2 terms, 8 years total. When she finally stepped down, she gave one last speech to the galaxy. "When the council pushed us too far, we could have become like them. We could have ruled through fear. We could have imposed our will on everyone else. But we chose a harder path. We chose to build something where everyone has a voice, where justice means the same thing for everyone, where freedom is not a privilege but a right. This work is not finished. It never will be. Every generation will have to fight for it in their own way. But if we do that, if we stay committed to these principles, then maybe we can build a galaxy worth living in." Years passed. The galaxy changed slowly but surely. Species that had been enemies became partners. Trade flourished. Technology advanced. Art and culture spread across thousands of worlds. Earth became a center of learning and diplomacy. Millions of beings visited each year, wanting to see the home world of the species that had changed everything. They walked the streets of cities that had existed for millennia. They learned human history, full of wars and peace, failures and triumphs. They saw that humans were not perfect, but they tried. On Viridian Prime, the old council chambers were converted into a museum. Visitors could walk through and see how the council had operated, see the evidence of their crimes, understand how tyranny works so they could recognize it if it ever returned. At the center of the museum was a display. It showed Resolution 8847, the law that had tried to break humanity. Below it were simple words. They asked us to surrender our freedom, we said no. Never forget that no is the most powerful word any species can speak. Ambassador Jiwon Choi retired after 15 years serving the Assembly. She went back to Earth and wrote a book about the war and its aftermath. The last chapter was titled What We Learned. In it, she wrote about power and how it corrupts, about freedom and what it costs, about justice and why it matters. But mostly she wrote about hope.